Alright, this is a continuation of section 4.1, and a couple things we're going to add to our graphing and things like that. A couple things that we didn't talk about from the other lesson. First thing that I want to talk about here is what the value of A will do for you. We already talked about how it will tell us whether there's a stretch or compression. The one thing else that it will do is it will tell us how the graph opens. So if A is positive, okay, if A is positive, then it's going to open in the upward direction, and it's going to have what we call a minimum at the vertex. Okay, so your graph just a rough sketch would look like so. Okay, it's open upward. Okay, the open part is up, and right here at the point where what we call the point of inflection, where it changes direction, this is the low point. It's as low as it will ever go. It'll never go below that, because as you look at your graph, it goes down, and then if you follow along your graph here, it goes down, and then it'll come back up. So this point right here is what we call a minimum value. Now, if A is negative, okay, if A is negative, then it's going to open down. And it's going to have what we call a maximum point. And the maximum is going to be at the vertex as well. Okay, example here, just a rough sketch here. As we look, you notice this is open downward, it's facing down. And at this point of inflection where it goes from going up to down, this is a maximum. That's the highest point it will ever reach. Okay, so at any time we can talk about the graph, whether it has a maximum or a minimum, and whether it opens up or down. Okay, the other thing that we're going to look at is domain and range. And domain is the x values that the graph covers, and the range is the y values that the graph covers. Okay, a couple of ways that they'll write this. They'll write it like this: some value number is between x here and some other value number, or again, some number is between a y value. That's a lot of times how you'll see it as an inequality. What that's telling you is it goes to and from a certain number. It goes from A, in this case, from A to B on the x-axis, and from A to B on the y-axis. Okay, that's probably the most likely how we'll write that in terms of writing domain and range. But just to kind of give you an idea of some other things that you're going to have to identify in terms of your graph. Okay, so now let's take a look here at a couple of examples. Now, this is your first example on the notes. Okay, first example on the notes, y equals x squared. I've got the graph here, and a couple things we want to identify. First of all, we better identify the vertex, and you should already have this on your notes. The vertex in this case is 0, 0. Okay, the axis of symmetry is the line x equals 0. All right, again, you should already have this on your notes as we look at this. Okay, and the couple of other things that we're going to ask for. All right, we want to identify, first of all, is this thing opening up or down? And we look at the a value, and I'll move this up here so you can take a look at the a value. As you look at this equation, a is going to equal 1. It's the number in front of x squared. There's no number there, so it's 1. And it's positive. So this thing is going to, since it's positive, it is going to open up. Okay, it's going to open up, which means if it opens up, it has a minimum and the minimum is at the point of the vertex, which in this case is 0, 0. Okay? So we can identify, open up, minimum. Now, let's take a look at domain and range. Now, you'll notice on domain and range, you'll start to see a pattern with this eventually here. Okay, domain and range, you'll notice that it has these arrows, and what that means is that even though it's still going up, it's still going in an outward direction both ways. So on the x-axis, now you'll notice again, the x-axis is right here. From left to right, those arrows means that it keeps going. So what is the furthest point? If I were to move this graph and continue this and keep going, what number would be way, way out there? Okay, that's what you're trying to identify. So the number that's way, way out there in this case is negative and infinity. This symbol right here, a sidewards 8 is infinity. Okay, it goes from negative infinity on the left to on the right. You notice again, it continues to keep on moving here. It'll keep on going and going and going and going and going. And what's that number that's way out there? That's what we call positive infinity. Okay, so the domain goes from negative infinity to positive infinity. That's on the x-axis. All right, now on the y-axis, as you look at this here, and as we look at the y-axis on this graph, the y-axis is up and down. So up and down, where does this graph start at? The lowest. What is the lowest point of the graph? Well, the lowest point is right here. That's the lowest point, and that's at 0, 0. So it's going to go 0. That's the lowest point it goes. It doesn't go below that. This graph comes down and it goes back up. It's never going to go below 0. Or you'll notice a lot of times this is the y value of the vertex. Okay? So it's going to go from 0 and it's going to go all the way up. And again, it doesn't ever stop, so this is going to go all the way up to infinity. Okay, we can talk about domain and range from any graph. All right. Okay, let's take a look here now. I'm going to your very last page and the very last problem. This problem here in your notes. Y equals negative 2 times x plus 1 quantity squared plus 4. And I've got the graph here down below. Okay, so first of all, again, we want to identify vertex is at the ordered pair, negative 1 and 4. Okay, and this thing opens down. And why does it open down? Because A is negative. If you look up top, the A value is right here. This is the A value. It's negative 2, so it's going to open down. Okay, it opens down. Now, let's figure out, since it opens down, it's going to have a maximum point. It's a maximum, which means it's a high point, and it's going to be at the ordered pair, negative 1 and 4. It's always at the vertex. The maximum point is right here. It's the highest point. Okay, that's as high as that graph will go. All right, so we've identified vertex, open up, down, maximum, min. Let's talk about domain. The domain, again, as you look at this, it has arrows here on the x-axis. So it would keep going, going, and going left. So it's going to be from negative infinity to, again, if on the right, it's going to keep going, 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 positive infinity. The range on the y-axis, the very low point that it'll go is negative infinity. These arrows right down here mean that it keeps going and going and going down there. We don't know what it's at. So it's going to go all the way to negative infinity. And it's going to come all the way up. As it comes up the y-axis, what's the highest point that it goes? It's right here. That's the highest point that it goes. And that's at the point 4. Okay, so now you were able to find the domain and range. So some things that I want you to be able to do tomorrow in class, I want you to be able to identify vertex, whether it opens up or down, maximum or minimum, and where it's at, and then to be able to tell me the domain and the range. Okay? All right, this concludes the part 3 of section 4.1 notes. Hopefully this will help you when you try to complete your assignment tomorrow.